Right, good morning. This morning we're talking to Judge Walter F. Williams.
Yes.
Judge Williams from Chattanooga, Tennessee, one of our prominent citizens here in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
I don't know about that.
So we want to talk to Brother Williams and get his story, and hopefully this will inspire some of you out there to aspire to be in the judicial system. Walter, tell me about your early childhood. Run up in the West Side.
Well, I was born in 1952. I've had a stroke, so you have to excuse my speaking. But I grew up in the west side of town in College Hill Court, 724 West 12th Street Court. I grew up as a young boy. I always enjoyed education. I was a student at James E. Henry School. I used to every morning open up the school with the janitor for the principal, Mrs. Patton, and I would meet her at her car and help her take her books and things into the office, and I would fire the furnace. That was a joy of mine. So I would get up every morning at 6 o'clock to be at school by 7 o'clock so I could fire the furnace and help Mrs. Patton in the office. I was an office worker and a cafeteria worker for Mrs. Trauber. But when I finished James E. Henry, I went to Howard Junior High School. And back then we had a junior high school. Nolan McGoy was the principal, assistant principal. And I finished the junior high school and went to the high school. Mm-hmm. And upon graduation, I got into Morehouse College. Morehouse was the only school that I wanted to attend, although I did apply to other places and did get in. Once I got my acceptance from Morehouse, I put the others in the garbage can. I knew by hook or crook or whatever, I would go to Morehouse, and I was able to put financial aid together along with loans from the bank, and I went to Morehouse. While there at Morehouse, I distinguished myself so that I got scholarships. Mm-hmm. In fact, I had more money than I needed to go to school. I gave my mother money because I had plenty of money to go to school.
How many was in your family at the time, Walter?
Just my brother and I.
Okay, so it was just two of you.
Just the two of us. We lived with my grandmother, but it was just four of us all total. And since the second grade, I've only wanted to be a lawyer and a judge. Since the second grade.
What inspired you to be a lawyer?
I don't know. I suspect my uncle did. He was a lawyer in Washington, and he used to come home driving his Cadillac and wearing $300 or $400 suits, and that impressed me. The sharpness that he had, the sharp tongue, the fancy dresser, the nice car. I guess it had some effect on me because we didn't have any black lawyers. Correct. In Chattanooga at that time.
And when you were growing up, Walter, of course, I think I grew up a little ahead of you, but when you were growing up, it was a challenge for us as African Americans.
Oh yes.
From whence we've come, it was a challenge as we tried to manipulate. Be in the system, trying to learn how to do things, even to try to find out how we were going to get into college. Oh, yeah. We always knew that we had to go to college. Our parents instilled that in us from an early age. And I'm sure that was instilled in you from an early age.
Oh, yeah. I remember my aunts and used to tell me they expected me to go to college, but they didn't expect me to go beyond college.
Right.
But they did expect me to finish high school and to finish college, and I did. But as I said, I knew I was not a great athlete, and so I didn't have athletics to lean on. So I knew that I had a good mind, and I prepared myself for the challenges ahead. I remember the color fountains, the white fountains. I remember my mother used to walk my brother and I to the YMCA, and White used to check with us. And my mother used to tell them to leave us alone. But I remember the times of segregated Chattanooga. I remember the Liberty Theater, and where we couldn't go to the Rogers or to the Martin Theater. So I remember it.
Yeah, we had two theaters. We had the Grand Theater and Liberty Theaters, and on Saturdays, if you did like we did, you went to the Grand Theater with those 6 Royal Crown tops. You watched the series.
I didn't go. I didn't. My mother would allow her to go to the Liberty.
Okay.
On East 9th Street.
Okay, and the Grand was up on the other end.
Yes.
Across the street. Okay, so as you finish your college education and you started your career, tell me a little bit about that. How did you?
Well, I really wanted to go to the University of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first choice, but I was not successful. Even though I had a good record at Morehouse, I finished magna cum laude, and others had been accepted into Chicago, but I was not accepted. That year of '74, the Bakke decision, B-A-K-K-E, came down from the Supreme Court regarding reverse discrimination.
Right.
And I guess I got caught up in the Bakke cases because all the white schools closed their doors on black students. Mm-hmm. So I was not able to get into Chicago. I got into other places, but not Chicago. And I went and was accepted to Howard University, a black school, I thought, at the time, and I went to Howard. Mm-hmm. In fact, my class was about 30% black and 70% white. I thought Howard was majority black, not so. As I understand it now, it's about 50-50. But be that to me, I went to Howard and did very well my first year. Did very well. I applied in December for the University of Chicago again, and I was accepted. So I knew it had to be the Bakke case that kept me from getting into school. But they accepted me, but I decided that I would stay at Howard and finish it, which I did. And I made the law review, which required you to have a certain average. And I became business manager of the law journal. And so I finished Howard in '77. I came home to Chattanooga, studied for the bar in Knoxville at the Andrew Johnson Motel, Andrew Jackson Motel in Knoxville. I ate tuna fish, a half a can for lunch and a half a can for dinner, because I didn't have any money. I ate pineapple, half a can for breakfast each day. But I studied for the bar, and I took the bar, was not successful on the first time, but I did pass the second time. The first time, I just didn't have the money to really study the way I needed to. but I was employed by the Internal Revenue Service, the Chief Counsel's Office. Back in those days, the plush jobs were either the law firm or the government. And Internal Revenue Service, Department of Justice, SEC were the prime agencies. And I was able to get my first choice, which was the Internal Revenue Service, and I was able to get my first choice, which was Atlanta, Georgia. So I was very pleased about that. I was also an Earl Warren Fellow. I got a scholarship from Earl Warren Fellowship of $2,500 a year. Butler Henderson was a Morehouse graduate, and I understand that he made the decision who would get the scholarship. And I knew that it was his reunion year at Morehouse, and I made sure that I got to know him. Everywhere he went, he heard about me, but I put my name out because I wanted the money. So
yeah, you was actually marketing yourself.
I actually marketed myself. I know about marketing.
Right.
Everywhere Butler Henderson went, he heard about Walter Williams. He said, I got to meet this guy. And so I met with him. He didn't promise me he would give me any money, but he said he would try. Sure enough, he did. I managed to get Earl Warren for every year. Every year I was at Morehouse, I became an Earl Warren Fellow. Well, I got accepted to IRS, and I passed the bar in February. And of course, I started with IRS in August. They required that you be a member of the bar anywhere in the country. And of course, I took the Tennessee bar and I became a Tennessee lawyer. I practiced with IRS. I was the only black. The only black. They had had two blacks in the history of IRS on the Chief Counsel side. Jack Johnson, who was the county executive at Prince George's, Maryland, he was the only other black, but he finished a year ahead of me. But so I was the second black and the only black in the office. Well, we had a black secretary, but other than that, I was the only black lawyer out of some 21 lawyers. But I spent 10 years at the Internal Revenue Service when I met John McClarty. At the time, I didn't know that my mother and his mother were high school classmates. I didn't find that out until after some years later. But be that as it may, I joined Judge McClarty now in the practice of law in 1980. In August of 1980, I became a partner in the firm which was called McClarty and Williams. And I stayed with the firm for about 14 years, I guess, and since the second grade, I wanted to be a lawyer and a judge, and I just prepared myself academically as well as otherwise to be a judge. Also, during the time I had the private practice, I was also full-time at the university. I was assistant professor of marketing and business law at UTC. I remember going there. Kermit Codd was the dean of the School of Business, and he heard about me. And I went to Kermit Codd and presented my resume, which showed that I was Phi Beta Kappa and finished Morehouse and finished Howard with high honors. And Kermit Cud told me he was looking for a full-time lawyer to teach business law. I told him I couldn't do it full-time because I had a law practice. So as I was leaving his office, he looked at my resume again. He said, wait just a minute. I think we can work something out. So we agreed that I would teach classes Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 12 o'clock. Teach classes Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12:15, and 2 graduate classes at night. And they would qualify me, 12 hours would qualify me for full time. I could do it provided that I could practice law. Right. As long as there was no conflict, I could do it. So I taught thousands of students. I had large classes, 125 in a class. In the undergraduate college, in the graduate colleges, I had about 35. But I was at the university about 8 years. I told them I was not interested in tenure. Although I was on a tenure track, I was not interested in tenure. I would leave the university whenever I chose to leave, or whenever they chose to terminate me. So I stayed 8 years, and then I decided to run for judge. I was successful on my first attempt. I got 56% of the vote. I didn't have a runoff. I was able to be elected. I'm the second black to be the judge, period. Benny Harris was the first black, and I became the second black.
So let me ask you a little bit about the challenges that you faced as an African American going to UTC, because we know UTC at one time did not even accept us up there.
I was in the outbound program at UTC, where they invited us to the campus during the school term on Saturdays, and then we had a month on campus during the summer. I was a part of the first outbound program in 1968. Bill Butterfield was the head of outbound. Dr. Butterfield, he was in the Department of Education. He started outbound. As I understand, it's still going on.
It is.
It's still going on.
It is. Matter of fact, one of your frat brothers used to be over it.
Booker Scruggs, yes.
Mm-hmm. So the challenges that you face, you were able to negate those things, cause problems, and to move on into the realms of teaching education, and then also, as you said, becoming a judge.
Yeah.
Now, once you became a judge, how you were a city judge, and somewhat of an unconventional city judge.
I told the people in my platform that I would be unusual. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do things the way they did them ordinarily. If they want an unconventional person, they ought to vote for me. If they wanted a conventional person, they had other choices. But I would shake things up, and I did.
You certainly did.
I did. I believe that education was what saved me.
Right.
And I believe that an education, a good education, could save others. So, as a part of my program, I insisted that students go to high school. I insisted there was not a person who came to my court who did not obtain an education. I insisted, as I told people, 889 or so people have their GEDs because I insisted on it. Over 200 have gone to college. I don't know how many are going to professional schools, but I insisted that they did have an education. I did lock people up. I had a reputation of that, but I still required them to get an education, even though I locked them
I
up.
remember I was in Texas working, I think, at Parkland Hospital for a while, and they did a special on you. I think it was CBS that did.
Yeah, they did. Harold Dow at CBS. It was the altitude of 60 Minutes. It was called Street Stories.
Street Stories. Okay, I couldn't remember the name of it, but they did that special on you, talking about the unconventional way that you treated those that came before you as you sat on the bench.
Yeah.
And certainly there are those out there that will sing your praises because of the things you did and help them to change their lives around.
I have yet to find one person who did not appreciate me forcing them back in school. I've not met one person who have not. In fact, when we go out to eat or other things, people come up to me to thank me for sending them back to school because they have better jobs now. I've yet to find one person. In fact, I can't go anywhere. I'm not bragging, but it's true. I can't go anywhere in the world that I don't find people that I had an impact on. We were in California where I gave a graduation address. We found some people in Palo Alto, California that appreciated what I did. I used to do a lot of public speaking. I used to do at least 2 or 3 a month.
Right.
I used to do it all over the country. But people appreciate the stance that I took in education. In fact, the governor of Colorado paid my way to come out to Colorado to talk to the state judges about alternative sentencing. I was able to do that.
You certainly did that. And Walter, you've been recognized in so many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
So many different awards and things of that nature. That's just second nature to the things that you've done. But by the same token, you've also been someone that has been a major leader in our city. You've helped politicians. You've helped those that aspire to be politicians.
Yeah.
And you've done some great things here in the city of Chattanooga.
I'm known as a money raiser.
Yeah.
In my former life, I'm not able to do it now. I was gifted in raising money. Irving Overton is one of the ones that I raised significant money for. Over $18,000 I would raise for him. Just one person did that. Reuben Taylor's son got into difficulties. I raised money for his legal defense. Duke Franklin, I raised money for his legal defense. I'm known as a money raiser. Andre McCary, Moses Freeman, all these people have used me to raise money for them because I knew people with money and I could raise money.
Well, since you know how to raise money, you can raise some for me out of my pocket. But Walter, as we start to look at your life in your later years, certainly you talked about have had the stroke and things of that nature, but you still continue to be an inspiration here in the city of Chattanooga.
I try.
You continue to show young people that there's a different way than standing on the street corner and things of that nature. And certainly that's important. But more than more than anything, I think your presence has been something of a beacon for the black community. You've been able to spotlight some things and highlight some things in our community that needed to be fixed, and not necessarily be fixed by the government, but needed to be fixed by us.
Yeah.
You know, you've talked about those things.
In fact, I was a part of the 100 Black Men.
Correct.
In fact, I was one of the beginning founding members of 100 Black Men of Chattanooga, and I started as the first chairman, and I was chair for 10 years of the scholarship committee,
That's right.
where we gave out over $250,000 in scholarships to deserving students around the community. I enjoyed it very much, but after 10 years, I thought it was time for me to retire, which I did. And there are other organizations that I participated in, gave money to help them. I was a big member in the churches. All the churches, all the black churches supported me.
They did.
I don't know of any church that didn't support me, and I think that helped me in my election. Because the second time, I got over 70% of the people voted for me. A lot of people thought the court of judiciary action would affect me. It didn't affect me. More people voted for me.
Correct.
More people voted for me. 56 to 70%.
That's a 14% raise.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you envision for the future of Chattanooga as we move forward.
I think Chattanooga has a bright future. I think we need a good, strong leader. I support, you may not want this, but I support Tim Kelly. I think he would be a good leader for Chattanooga. Somebody who was raised here, who knows Chattanooga, and could do a good job. I'm not opposed to a black being mayor. I'm not opposed to that, but I just don't think it will happen. Of course, I didn't think Obama would be the president. He ended up being the president. But I just think Tim Kelly would do a good job. And so I'm giving my support to him. Although I wish others success, it's hard raising money. It's hard raising money. And you don't have people like yours truly who are willing to raise that for you. I just don't see it.
Okay. So, as you move forward down the highway and when going down the future of Chattanooga, do you envision getting back into the workforce? I know at one time they talked about you doing the environmental things.
I do the demolition. In fact, yesterday, Wednesdays, once a quarter or thereabouts, once every 2 months, I do the demolition docket, where persons are cited to me to fix up their properties or have them torn down. So I do that once a quarter or once every other month, and I go by the law firm to give advice. But other than that, I'm retired.
You're retired.
I'm retired. I don't think my style of justice is different. I support Judge Webb. I'm happy that he came through my office. A lot of people don't realize that I was one of the ones that supported him in his law school education.
Okay.
And And a lot of things that he does is because I did them. But he has other things to do. But I'm very impressed with him.
Okay, great. So, as we close this out, what words of wisdom would you give to our kids that will be looking at this video and talking and listening to the things that you said? What words of wisdom or what would you say to them to inspire them to continue their education and also to look at maybe the judicial system as a career?
Well, one of my sayings, and I believe it's true, it's not where you're from, but it's where you're going that makes the difference. Because if people was to look at my background, they would say I would not achieve. Because I grew up in a housing project. But it's not where you're from, but it's where you're going that makes the difference. So young people need to understand that don't worry about your upbringing. Don't worry about that. It's what you put into it, you get out of it. I put the effort, time in my education. I think it's important, and I think I got something out of it. So I've encouraged my girls and others that I meet along the way to better themselves educationally, and I think they will turn out to be okay.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, Walter, and thank you so much for the service that you've given to Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a leader in our community as a whole. And hopefully that you will have said something that will inspire others to look hard at their future and to continue their education as they move forward.
Well,
Thank you once again, and thank you to your family for allowing us to be here in your wonderful home, beautiful home. And thank you, thank your wife for allowing us to be here.
well, I thank you for that, because otherwise you wouldn't be here.
You know that? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.